Boom! Over the course of Survivor 48, we have been analyzing the edit to predict the future of the season and who will win. And we correctly predicted the last 5 boots of the season. Now that we've officially eliminated half of this season's castaways, it's time to serve up a new piping hot, spicy pizza pie of predictions and analysis for this week of episode 8. But quickly, before we get into the Edgic ratings, if you're new to Edgic or you don't know how it works, basically we're going to give each character a specific rating based on what type of content they were getting in this week's episode. There are 3 parts to an Edgic rating. The first is just the type of edit. There are 4 different types of edit. It could be under the radar, or UTR in an acronym form, which stands for you didn't see very much of them. It could be middle of the road, or MOR, which stands for you saw some of them, but they weren't super fleshed out as a character. They could be CP for complex personality. They had a lot of content and they were pretty fleshed out. Or it could be OTT, which stands for over the top, which means you saw way too much of them. The second part of an Edgic rating is the tone of their edit. It could either be P for a positive leaning edit, N for a negative leaning edit, M for mixed, you got a little bit of both, or it could be just no tone, neutral tone, so you don't have any letter at all, just a neutral edit. And then the number in every Edgic rating is just a visibility scale from 1 to 5 of how much you saw them in the episode. 1 for you barely saw them at all, 5 for you saw a ton of them. And so, first things first, we have to get into talking about this week's episode and my general thoughts. I gotta say, holy freaking crap, man. I did it. This is 5 in a row. 5 boots that I have gotten right in a row. I said Bianca. I said Charity. I said Cedric. And here we are now with, of course, Chrissy. I'm on a hot streak, man. This is fantastic. I'm feeling so good about the way this is going. Now, this week, I don't have as much time to do the Edgic ratings, so I'm going to have to do them pretty quick. And you know, I haven't had as much time to think through my thoughts, but hopefully I can whip up an idea that'll be a little bit, on track with what I'm hoping to get and get it right next week as well. I'm not surprised to see Chrissy go out here. It felt like this is where it was going for me, especially since last episode was kind of a negative leaning episode for her. And then this time I felt like it just spiraled even more. This is pretty much exactly what I was expecting to happen to Chrissy this episode. I said last week, I thought that they tried to make it seem like it could be Joe. I thought that would be a smoke screen. The numbers wouldn't be there to get out Joe, and they weren't. It wasn't even close. The Kamilla plan was a lot more viable than I maybe expected. I didn't think it would go as far as it did, but it did not go through. But I do think we could be seeing that thing kind of explode a little bit more next week. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. In terms of the themes that we've been talking about in this season, especially this theme of honesty, that I called out way back in episode 3, I think, that I was picking up this theme of honesty being a big part of the season. And here we are. It's in full bloom. It is just so over the top. People being honest versus dishonest. And I think we're going to see that come to a big head with, Kyle talking about being dishonest with the Kamilla thing. And his relationship with her, and then, David trying to suss that out. We got an easy vote maybe this week, but definitely something that could be leading towards something big next week that maybe we'll talk a little bit more about in the predictions at the end of the episode. But otherwise, I feel like this was a pretty standard episode. I'm not too shaken, rattled, and rolled. It's setting up potentially interesting things for the future, but pretty standard vote. So let's get into the Edgic ratings and see what we have. So starting off, of course, with Chrissy, our fallen soldier. I feel bad. Chrissy definitely didn't get a ton of content in the season, but I thought she was a fun character, and a little bit we did get from her. And I'm thinking she honestly wasn't in the episode as much as I would have expected. She wasn't the least visible person in the episode, but she wasn't super visible. But I feel like we still got a good sense of what she was thinking. I think we got a sense of her at Tribal a lot, kind of where she was at. Again, a big blow up at Tribal for Chrissy. I'm thinking we're looking at a complex personality. I'm kind of thinking maybe a complex personality negative or maybe a mixed because I feel like man, I'm thinking maybe complex personality negative, perhaps on Chrissy. Is that right? Because I mean, she's going up against the main people. You're meant to kind of see her spiraling a bit. I don't think there was anything positive. So honestly, let's just go with a negative. Why not? And it's either a 3 or 2. I feel like she was definitely a big presence in the episode. Even though she didn't get the most confessionals, we can take a look at some confessional charts here. This is from Just Strategic on Twitter. Chrissy, 2 confessionals. I don't think she had a ton of actual content, but it still felt like she was a pretty big presence in the episode. I think I'd give her a 3. That feels fine to me. So, and then we have to hop up to the top and work our way down alphabetically. The next one, now being David, is the first one alphabetically in the alphabet after losing both Chrissy and Cedric in the last 2 episodes. So, David is interesting. I'm definitely feeling a mixed tone, I think, on David here, because we saw a lot of David being right. And this is kind of where I'm at a bit of a head, because I feel like David is very wrong in his mentality at Tribal Council, and it's kind of painted in a negative way in his perception of all the big guys want to stick together. We don't want to be used as shields and all that. And I know that the audience does not like it. Okay, I get it. I'm not saying I'm with that mentality either. But I don't think it was over the top negative in how it was portrayed. And I still think it's so interesting to me that I feel like David is still being shown to be very right and very someone to be invested in him figuring out. He's the one that's sussing out this Kamilla alliance. He's the one that we really get to see figuring that out. We don't see that from Shauhin. I don't know if we see that from Joe. David is the one that is figuring it out. So I find that very interesting. So I'm thinking a complex personality mixed for David this episode. I'm interested to see how many confessionals did he get. 6. It felt like a pretty big episode for David. I might go CPM 4 on this. That feels decent to me. I don't think it was over the top. It wasn't as over top as I thought it might be. He didn't get the crazy edit scenes like he's gotten in the past. He's had 3 over the top so far, which is a lot. So I think a complex personality mixed 4 feels good for David on this episode, because he's very right about things and he's really figuring out where the alliances are standing. But I also think there's a tinge of negativity in kind of the way he's speaking at Tribal and way he's speaking to other people, which I think is maybe not as telegraphed in the edit compared to what people are perceiving, but we'll give him mixed. Eva, I'm interested to see Eva's confessional charts here. We get a 5 on Eva. Pretty big confessional episode for most people around the board here. For Eva, she finds the advantage. She wins immunity. Big, so a pretty big episode for Eva in that regard. I don't think it was positive. I feel like it was, kind of standard tone. Um, you could maybe argue it's middle of the road, but I think it's complex. I think we're looking at like a complex 3, maybe. Standard for Eva. You could maybe go 4. Um, but I don't know if it was that much. Because I feel like we didn't hear, well, we did hear her weigh in on the vote. I don't know. This was an interesting episode. It was standard in what I expected to happen. So I don't have a whole lot to say about like what actually happened. But in terms of like the conversations and the edits we were getting, like we got a lot of very deep strategic content from a lot of people in this episode, which is interesting to me. But I think we're going to go with a complex 3 on Eva. For Joe, I'm feeling the same. I might even, was this a 4? Because I feel like this was a pretty good episode for Joe. He had some pretty good content. He had, oh man. Now I'm thinking, did it have tone? I felt like we got some good strategic content from Joe. He was right about a lot of the things he was thinking. We saw people say that they trust him and they kind of shot down Chrissy trying to go for him. There was some negativity thrown his way from Chrissy, but other than that, people were pretty positive on Joe. I might even go like a complex personality positive 3 here on Joe. He was shown to be very trustworthy. He was shielded a little bit maybe from the chaos of David. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I'm feeling. We're on very first instincts basis this week. We're going to try to get this done a little bit quicker than usual. So that's what we're going to go with for now. Kamilla, now a big episode for Kamilla. After 2 very small episodes, we got a lot of her. I even want to say, do I even go over the top? No. I think we're going to go complex personality negative here and maybe give it a 4. I feel like we got a lot of Kamilla in this episode, and it felt very villainous to me. Kamilla, I feel like, has hit a point where she feels like she's set up as like a villain, kind of in like a Genevieve mold, perhaps. Which I feel like she's just become like this kind of villain antagonist to these other people in the edit. Yeah, and again, the only person that's sticking up for her is Kyle. Well, that's not true. We saw stuff from Shauhin. So, I mean, maybe you could argue it was a mixed episode for Kamilla. Because we did get good stuff from some other people. But I'm feeling negative. I feel like this was a villain edit for Kamilla this episode. But that's true. It's true we did get some good stuff from Shauhin talking about Kamilla. But I also feel like that was painted as like, Shauhin, what are you talking about? Why are you giving positivity to Kamilla right now? She's against you. Right? She's a villain. She's your antagonist, basically, Shauhin. You should be against her. And so that makes me feel like it's negative anyways. So that's what I'm saying. I'm sticking my guns. Kyle, this was an interesting episode for Kyle. Big episode for Kyle. Again, so much for him. We're definitely looking at a complex personality for Kyle this episode. Was there tone? I mean, we saw David kind of calling out Kyle a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, I'm seeing through. Maybe Kyle's not in on this alliance. Maybe he's not as trustworthy." So maybe it's a mixed tone episode for Kyle, honestly. Yeah, you know what? I might give Kyle the same thing I gave David. Complex personality. We get a lot of complex personalities. Nobody's below a complex so far. Yeah, I feel like we're looking. I mean, I'm looking at either mixed or neutral tone here for Kyle, but this felt like a toneful episode for him, even though I don't know what the tone is. Right? So that's what makes me want to go mixed. So yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a good rating for Kyle. Let's check in with the confessional charts again, just for the heck of it. Kamilla with 7, Kyle with 9. Do we even go a 5? Honestly, maybe it was a 5. Kyle got so much this episode. Screw it. Let's give him a 5. I feel like this was a big episode for Kyle. He had so much strategic content, so much like he was spiraling to try to save Kamilla this episode. Yeah, I think that's a good rating. Mary. Oh, Mary. You know what? She only had one confessional this episode, but I still feel like it's middle of the road because I feel like we got a lot of Mary. Talk about Mary. She was pretty present. I'm kind of thinking maybe like a middle of the road 3 here. I don't think she had tone. Not really. David said that he trusted her, but I mean, you get a little bit of like Joe, like kind of throwing her under the bus a little bit, like Mary's throwing out some kind of plan. I don't know. Maybe we'll give her a mixed tone. Sure. Let's give her a mixed tone. Why not? Yeah, because we did hear a little bit, because it did feel like the Kamilla plan was put on Mary a little bit, even though we heard it so much from David, not from Mary. But yeah. Oh, I don't know if it was a 3 though. I gave it a 3. I don't think it's a 3. I think it's a 2. Yeah, because she didn't get a whole lot of confessionals or talking herself, but she was pretty present. And the thing that I was very interested in this episode for Mary is that we got this thing in the previously on Survivor segment of David saying, like something like, we have the strong 5 and Mary is with us, or something like that. And I'm like, what? That confessional did not happen before. That this was, I mean, I kind of saw through the lines. We could kind of see that. Yeah, Mary trusts David. She's kind of with that alliance right now. But like, it was new news. This was not like something that was outright stated before this point. So that was very interesting to me that was included. Obviously, Mary's a big part of this episode in a lot of ways, but I don't know what that spells for Mary moving forward. Mitch had quite a bit of content early on in this episode. It kind of dwindled. We didn't really hear him talk about the vote at all. But we did hear from him very early on after Tribal. We heard from him talking about he wants to like make big moves. There was a moment where he said like he's ready to play really hard and whatnot. I want to check, just again for fun, Mitch's confessionals. Mitch had 6 confessionals this episode. So I don't want to give him a 4, even though he has more confessionals than other people. So I kind of am feeling giving him, I think I want to give him a 3. I think just a straightforward, complex 3 on Mitch this episode, maybe. That's how I'm feeling. Shauhin. Shauhin, I've been defending you. I've been defending you so hard. I thought, Shauhin, man, top of the charts. Easy. Easy, my number 1 choice. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. And here I am. Eating my, what's the phrase? Eating tack? Eating dirt. Eating my words. That's maybe what I'm looking for. I'm eating my words here. This was episode 4 all over again. What are you doing? Why are all of your reads completely wrong? What is this? You could argue that this was supposed to be Shauhin, saying that, keeping Kamilla around. Maybe they're going to be allies. He trusts them. I mean, there's a reason why Kamilla's still in the game and didn't get voted out this time. But it just felt like it was like, Shauhin, your reads are so wrong. Why are you trusting Kamilla when she's literally your number one op right now? What are you doing? I defended Shauhin really hard that it was not a negative tone last week, and I stand by that. It was not a negative tone last week. But I think it might be a negative tone this week because it's at least mixed. He got a little bit of people talking about that he is a big threat. He's a good game player, but I felt this was just again a moment of like Shauhin just having all the wrong reads on the situation. He literally said in the episode, "I trust Kamilla the most." Like, he trusts Kamilla more than David and Kyle, which is so wrong. I don't know. I can't fathom this or piece this together in the edit in any way other than this was negative. This had to be Shauhin being a fool, basically, because they've specifically shown to us that he's dead wrong. Kyle and Kamilla have been gunning for him. So I think it's gotta be negative. Maybe it's like Shauhin's a nice guy and he's too trusting. Maybe it's supposed to be a good thing for him, but for the time being, I gotta give him a negative. Either a complex personality negative or an over the top negative. Honestly, I might even do this, an OTT -3. A lesser episode than episode 4, but still pretty bad. Screw it. Let's do it for fun. I've got too many complex personalities this episode anyways. So, there we go for Shauhin. And finally, that leaves us with Star. Oh, Star. Star was building up. We were having a good time there. And Star is right back to the bottom of Underratedville. I didn't even realize I gave Star an underrated last week. But again, Star loses her vote in this episode. And then we just barely hear anything from her. And that's about it. So I'm thinking this has got to be probably the same rating as last week. I think an Under the Radar 2. Get a little bit from her about losing her vote. Technically, she gets 3 confessionals, but she felt so unsubstantive, even though she lost her vote. You could maybe go middle of the road, but I'm feeling Under the Radar for the time being. So, with all that being said, let's hop on over to the Contender Rankings to talk about the contenders for the season. Of course, Chrissy eliminated. Chrissy's been at the bottom of our rankings for some time now. So that's nice. Chop that off at the bottom. And we'll get into, a collection of people that are some real contenders here. Now, at the bottom, we have 2 people that are still not contenders at all, which are Star and Mary. This is really difficult. I don't know which to put on the bottom, quite frankly. I think that neither of them have very good edits at all. Mary had a better week this week, but it still felt kind of negative to me. I think I'm just going to keep it the way it is because I feel like they're both pretty much out of contention at this point entirely. And I want to put Star higher. So that's the way I'm doing it. Now, after this point, though, we have some interesting shakeups a little bit here. I feel like I'm moving around this list in some significant ways. I think this is crazy to put this person third from the bottom, but I think I might put David. I don't know. I'm so conflicted on David's edit because David was shown to be so right this episode, and yet people are like calling him crazy and chaotic and that he's blowing everything up. And yet he's right. He's seeing, like, he's figuring it out. But I just think he's starting to get he's getting more negative tone in his edit. It's creeping in, and in a way that I don't think is good for him. I don't think it's necessary. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna put David here for now. I think I am. No, you know what? Yeah, I think. No, I'm changing it. You know what? David's moving up because at least he's got a lot of content, and it's getting negative. But no, no, because everyone's calling him a crackpot. He's staying there. I'm sorry. I want him. I was gonna move him up because he does have a lot of content, but it's just people are like treating him like a crackpot right now, and even though he's right. I don't know why people are being so mean to David. So, I mean, we get a lot of strategic talks from him, but I don't love the tone that his edit is heading in. So he's staying there. And then next is Kamilla. This was a lot more content for Kamilla this episode, but I still feel like not a great episode. Again, I feel like she's kind of being in this villain's role. I just think that she's gonna be like someone, if not an end game dragon, like a dragon to slay at some point. It's just I feel like Kyle had scrambled so hard to save her, and I just don't think that that's going to be able to go on forever. Uh, yeah, I'm struggling to see it for Kamilla at this point, and I'm even contemplating putting her below David. But I do think like she had some like good stuff from Shauhin saying he trusted her and whatnot. So I don't know. It's here neither here nor there. Mitch cracking the top 5. I never thought that this top 6 would get beaten. I've been saying for weeks that this top 6 that I've had for the past 4 weeks I thought was very strong. I never thought that they would crumble. But Mitch is on an uprise. David and Kamilla feel pretty out of it for me at this point. Whereas this was another good episode for Mitch. Not the biggest. It didn't feel like he was the main character of the episode, but he still got really good content. Last episode was still good from him. And I said last week, I was like, I'm going to need a really good episode from Mitch next week to keep him on track of moving up in these charts. And although this wasn't like an overly great episode for Mitch, I still feel like it was pretty good. We still heard his strategic content. We heard him saying he wants to like conquer the game, something like that. He wants to make big moves. And I'm thinking, maybe there's something there for Mitch. And he has had a pretty positive edit so far. Couple that with Joe saying last week that Mitch could win this game. Things are looking up for Mitch. I can't put him higher than 5 at the moment because, he was so low on my rankings not but 2 weeks ago. And I really, felt like his visibility was pretty lacking for quite a while there. But he's definitely got a lot more upward trajectory and tones in his edit than Kamilla and David do. Now, these top 4 are tough. I'll be honest. I'm not sure how I'm going to rank these people. But last week, I had Josiah on, and he talked me out of doing a loggy top 3. I felt like I chickened out. I wanted a loggy top 3. And damn it, I'm doing it. Kyle, you're going down to 4. I'm sorry. And you know what? I don't even know why Kyle's at 4, because honestly, this was a really good episode for him in a lot of ways. We saw him trying to save Kamilla. He worked really hard to make it happen, and it happened. So maybe Kyle should be higher. But I feel so good about Loggy. I just want a Loggy top 3. And I want to do it at some point. So we're doing the Loggy top 3. And Kyle is kind of at 4 by default, although I think Kyle's edit is in a very good spot. But I just feel I can see Siva crumbling, and I can see we saw Mitch trying to form Siva together, form strong, and that didn't work. So even though Kyle did save Kamilla, they still voted out a Siva. It still was like an L for Siva as a whole, and I just feel like Siva's got so many like spikes in them, like they're falling apart. They're blowing up, they're crumbling, and I just don't think Asiva is winning. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm seeing them crumble right now. Now, to this top three. We're going to do something intense. Shauhin is getting bumped down to 3. Another bad episode for Shauhin. I gotta demote you, Shauhin. If you're gonna have an episode this bad, I gotta demote you. I'm sorry. You can't have a bad episode and stay at number 1. You gotta have consistently good episodes if you want to stay at number 1. And this was a bad episode for Shauhin. Not as bad as episode 4 was, but still, still bad in a lot of ways. I still think that Shauhin's edit the last 2 episodes was really good, and I still think in a lot of ways that Shauhin is winning. But I gotta demote him because the episode was so bad. And he just had so many wrong reads, and it really made me like, it really made me double check my thoughts on Shauhin moving forward. So you're at 3 for now, Beard Guy. He might go back up because I still think he's got a really good edit. But I'm starting to think maybe Shauhin doesn't win because he keeps having the wrong reads. Maybe he either falls, he's the one to fall at some point, or maybe even he loses at the end to one of his laggy partners in crime. Because we see even Joe be right about a lot of things. We see people talk about them as big threats, but the numbers just have still never felt like they were there to get them out. It just has never felt possible. And I mean, Shauhin, it's felt much more possible, right? They've all been in danger in some ways. But Shauhin felt like, they might vote out Shauhin. And I think if they were to vote out Lagi, they would want to vote out Shauhin. Whereas I think Joe and Eva have just been like, all right, So, as much as I would love to put Joe back up at number 1, I think I'm gonna bring in someone new, another person I'm a big fan of. Eva, congrats on your number 1 spot. Joe's coming at number 2. I'll talk about Joe. Joe had a very good episode this week. I thought we saw Joe having a lot of really good reads this week. We saw him, really being this person in the middle. He's making the decisions about Chrissy or Kamilla. He wants out Chrissy. He gets his way. Chrissy goes. We saw him. I can't quite remember what it was, but there was some other moment where he had some very good reads on the situation. We saw him talk a little bit. I believe it was when they were splitting up. Oh, it was when they were splitting up into the duos. We saw Joe kind of talking about like people are, it's kind of like a game of cat and mouse or whatever, and nobody really wants to make a move, but heck, I just got to make a move. I put it out there because we're gonna have to hurt someone's feelings eventually here, so we just got to get it over with or something like that. And I felt like that was a really good confessional, and I felt that was really good for Joe. And maybe indicative of his game that he's like, you know what? Like at some point you got to hurt people's feelings, even though he doesn't want to. He's going to be honest and he's going to be straightforward. And we keep hearing that. We heard that from Kyle again about how straightforward Joe, he shoots it straight. This was a good episode for Joe. And I feel like this was upward trajectory that I didn't know he had back in him. So yes, he was a target this episode, but yeah, good for Joe. And Eva, coming in at number 1 spot, wins immunity this week, finds an advantage that we won't see what it is until next episode, but that is pretty epic for Eva. Another person on my draft team that I have my friends, Eva and Joe, my top 2 draft picks, at the top spots. I love to see it. I feel like Eva has just been so consistent. I really have not had a whole lot of flaws in Eva's edit. She had a little bit of negativity, but all the people that she has had negativity from have pretty much changed their minds or have been voted out. And I feel like she's just been really steady and really, really in there. And I feel like I look at Joe's got problems in his edit because he's had lower visibility. Shauhin's had problems in edit in that he has shown to have very wrong reads sometimes and some very negative tone. But Eva has had pretty much never negative tone, really. Mixed tone at worst. Um, and has just always been such a presence in the edit. I don't feel super passionate about Eva being in the number one spot at the moment, but I do feel like I just have problems with a lot of other people I don't have with Eva. And I'm like, maybe Eva just gets through and wins it. I don't know. I mean, we've heard a lot about Joe and Eva being, big threats in a way. I could see it. So that's the top five we're going with. A new member of the top five, Mitch, finally breaking into the top five. And then we have a new top contender, Eva. Shauhin, I wanted to keep you at number one, but you had to get demoted because this episode was so bad for you. Otherwise, I'm still feeling a locky win, but I do think, honestly, Kyle's doing pretty good right now. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Kyle's on an upward trajectory. I definitely think Kyle's got the best edit of the Sivas at the moment. Mitch is doing all right, too. But, yeah. So, with all that said, with the contenders done, Edgic Ratings done, let's talk about predictions for the future. Okay. So, I have thought for a little while, for like a week or two, that I was kind of seeing losing finalist in Mitch's edit. And this week I started to see something that supported that theory for me. In that we saw Mitch kind of talk about how he wants to make big moves. And he talked about this in confessional. And he wants to shake up the game. He wants to do something. He wants to play hardball. Something like that. But he didn't really do anything. He didn't really make anything happen. And maybe he will in the future. But I'm starting to think, is Mitch this season's Jake from Survivor 45? And I feel like I see a lot of similarities in the edit as to Jake. Very positive tones. Jake had very positive underdog tones, much like Jake. Mitch and Jake are both on the outs, kind of on the bottom in a lot of ways, but kind of floating by. I feel like Mitch and Jake both had kind of lower visibility in the pre-merge. Some positive moments, but they weren't the main characters. And now with the merge, both have kind of spiked up and have both talked a lot about wanting to make big moves, wanting to make things happen, but not really getting anything done or really having the influence or the pull to make anything happen. And maybe that leads us to a trajectory of Mitch being a losing finalist. Maybe a zero finalist even. I'm seeing Jake O'Kane in the Mitch edit right now. And call me crazy, but maybe it's going to be a Joe, Eva, Mitch final three, my draft team, baby. Heck yes. That would be pretty awesome. But yeah, that was the big prediction for the future that I was starting to see this week. Was maybe the Mitch losing final stock. I think Mitch winning chances are also higher. I mean, it's possible. Maybe we're looking at like a big underdog arc for Mitch, and he runs it, and he somehow survives all these crazy councils, and somehow wins. Possible. But that is my big prediction for Mitch this week. Otherwise, predictions for the future. I don't think I have a whole lot of other thoughts significantly. I'm seeing maybe the downfall of Shauhin more than I thought I would, but, I think he's still doing all right. Everyone else, who knows? I've been trying to predict, and this is something that maybe I'll do more next week. I was going to do it last week, and then I wasn't able to, and then I was going to do it this week, but I didn't have time. Of like a chart of like who is most likely to get every placement, because I feel like every placement kind of has a vibe to it, And so who's gonna get each placement? And so for losing finalists, I'm seeing it the most. I'm seeing it the most in Mitch. I'm seeing it the most in David, right? And then I'm looking at like fire making loser, and who specifically is maybe giving fire making loser. If you look at in the past, people have looked at a lot of clues for who looks like they could be losing fire making. The big classic one is people look at Carson in Survivor 44, that the fire was reflected in his glasses, and that was a big thing. I don't really remember what that shot actually looks like, but I remember people saying it a lot. So apparently there are always these kind of clues. And you look at Teeny last season in 47. I mean, that was super obvious, right? Losing the bag in the fire. They had this big, huge speech about their bag being burned up in flames and how that reflects their game. That felt, we're leaning towards a fire-making loser here. So I've heard this a lot in the comments, and I want to thank people for pointing this out. And I've seen some other people saying this, that Mary is looking like maybe a fire-making loser, because I've seen people say this in the comments, that apparently she made a comment, I believe, in the first episode about how she hates making fire, something like that. I don't recall that scene exactly, but it does seem like that was an important moment that a lot of people have been picking up on. So thank you all for pointing that out to me. So I think Mary is potentially on that fire-making loser list. I also think Joe is giving potentially fire-making loser list. We saw, obviously he's a firefighter, so we've seen him do a lot of fire-making illusions. But, way back in episode 3, we saw him make that big bonfire. That felt like a big deal. We also see in the intro sequence, Joe makes fire in the intro sequence. We see him blowing on some embers and some flames coming up. And I know there are people out there that like to analyze the intro sequence and look for clues. I do. I mean, I think that's cool and a fun thing to look at. But I know that people have said that like sometimes there's like fire making clues in the intro and it doesn't really lead to anything. I saw someone make a post on Reddit about that, how it doesn't really mean anything usually. But maybe this season it does. Maybe Joe's fire making connections are important. That doesn't necessarily mean he loses. Maybe he wins fire. Maybe he wins fire against Mary. Because we know he's good at it, right? But those are people I'm looking at potentially for fire-making loser. Otherwise, I'm seeing Kamilla could be like a endgame boss, maybe like a 5th place, someone like a Genevieve that doesn't have the biggest edit, but is kind of like a villain, kind of, shown to be very strategic and, doing stuff, trying to make moves, but not like, never really the main character necessarily. So, we could be looking at that for Kamilla. As for the boot next week, this is a big deal. I gotta get this right because I've gotten 5 in a row. I hate to lose the streak. We want to keep it alive. But honestly, this is the hardest prediction I've had to make in a while. Because it looks like things are going to start blowing up this next week, right? This tension is creating between David and Mary and kind of Eva, and then like they're against like Shauhin and Kyle and Kamilla, and like Joe is like kind of in the middle, I guess. And I can see this alliance maybe finally blowing up a little bit. I don't think we're teed up for a Mitch boot next week. I think maybe we were teed up last week, but I did not predict it would be Mitch. I thought last week, maybe I predicted that would mean more for his longevity than his boot next week, which is this week. I was right about that. I don't see it being teed up, but it's possible, right? It feels like it would come a little bit out of nowhere, but it's possible because he is obviously the most on the outs, most on the bottom. I mean, Star's definitely a possible boot at any point. I mean, Star's gotten very little content. This was Star's worst episode in a while. Obviously people always talk about want to get out Shauhin, want to get out Kamilla. These are like 2 people that have really been floating out there as people that people want to get voted out. David also obviously has a lot of chaos. People want to vote him out probably. But I think I'm going to go with my official prediction that I think that Mary is going to get voted out next week. Because I think people are seeing this connection between Mary and David a lot more. I think people are getting worried about that. They're seeing David become a little bit crazed, a little bit doing stuff that they don't want him to do. But I think that David is maybe a little insulated. People don't necessarily want to vote out David himself because they can still reel him back in. So instead, they want to chop off his right-hand person, which is Mary. And Mary's had a pretty small edit. And this week, we were really teed up about this David-Mary connection that seemed to be there, but we didn't hear a lot about it. So it doesn't make me feel like it's all that important. And it just feels like they might just want to slice off Mary from David, pull David back into the strong alliance, not give him any other alternatives to run to. And that's an easy spot for Mary to potentially go out. Now, we have had a few, kind of under-edited boots recently. We had obviously lost Chrissy this week. We lost Cedric the week before. So, maybe it is time we lose a bigger edited person next week. It's possible. I don't think that people are going to end up surmounting against Eva and Joe. I felt like Eva and Joe, one of them should be going out soon, based on what I was seeing before, but I don't super see the setup for that. I mean, obviously people talking about Joe, but I don't know who's voting out Joe next week. If it is going to be someone, I feel like it would be Shauhin. I could see somehow the votes end up going crazy on Kamilla, but maybe it is David just because they, we're getting a lot of that, but I just think David has had so over the top edit. I would be surprised to see him go out in 9th place. Feels like he's being set up for a further end game. So, yeah, I think if I have to predict, I'm going to predict Mary for next week. I know that there's been speculation about, stuff that Mary might do later in the season. I won't reveal because I don't know if it's technically like spoilers or if it's just speculation. But I just, in my heart of hearts, is telling me Mary is getting voted out next week. She was teed up this week in a weird way that I don't know why she was teed up that way this week. So that's my official prediction. Mary getting voted out next week. Eva is now at the top of our rankings. Shauhin is falling, and that's where we are. So, having fun. I know people are poo-pooing the season a little bit. They're calling it all kinds of names. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's a unique season. I'm having a lot of fun. I like a lot of these people in the Strength Alliance. I don't care, okay? I honestly, Twitter has become such a cesspool of negativity about this stuff, and it really makes me sad because I feel like Joe and Eva are such likable people and characters and such like good-hearted on the show. And I mean, people have criticisms of them, and I think there are fair criticisms out there, but people like calling people on the show like the devil and saying that this is the worst season ever and this loyalty alliance is like the worst thing that ever happened to Survivor. I just think it's very extreme, and I just really could not disagree. I could disagree more, but I do disagree. I'm enjoying it. I still feel like there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of craziness. This episode I thought was very entertaining. I really didn't know what was going to happen. I was right about what was going to happen, but it still was pretty interesting. So I think this is a fun season. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. And that's all my thoughts for this week. If you enjoyed or if you didn't enjoy, leave them all your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more of these Edgic videos, we'll do them every week on every single episode of the show. So press the subscribe button for more Survivor Edgic videos and maybe some other videos coming down the line on other shows or Survivor seasons. I've been North. This has been episode 8 Edgic Ratings, and I'll see you all next time. Stay frosty.